The Mannequin's Whisper. The department store, a colossal structure of fading grandeur, stood silent in the shroud of night. Its once bustling halls now echoed only with the haunting whispers of the past. Emily, a young security guard with a curious nature, patrolled its dimly lit aisles, her flashlight cutting through the darkness like a lighthouse in a sea of shadows. She had always been drawn to the mysteries of the night, and the graveyard shift at the department store had become her peculiar domain. Alone with the mannequins that populated the store's displays, she couldn't help but wonder about the secrets that lay hidden beneath their frozen expressions. It was on one such night, while making her rounds, that Emily first heard the whispers. Faint, barely audible, they danced on the edge of her perception. She stopped in her tracks, her senses alert to the eerie sounds that seemed to emanate from the mannequins. "Is there someone here?" Emily muttered to herself, her breath trembling in the cold air. She directed her flashlight towards the nearest display, its plastic inhabitants arranged in a mock scene of domestic bliss. The mannequins remained still, their painted eyes fixed on nothingness. As Emily continued her patrol, the whispers persisted, growing louder with each passing moment. It was as if the very walls of the department store had absorbed the stories of those who had once shopped there. But these were no ordinary whispers. They carried a strange, almost otherworldly quality. With an unsettling mix of trepidation and curiosity, Emily ventured deeper into the store. She could feel the eyes of the mannequins following her, their silent judgments palpable. The whispers seemed to coalesce, forming fragmented sentences that hinted at a hidden narrative. "Remember, the dresses, behind the counter, secrets." The word sent shivers down Emily's spine. She approached the counter in question, her flashlight revealing a forgotten collection of vintage dresses, each one exuding an aura of faded glamour. It was as if the very fabric of the garments held memories of the women who had once worn them. Emily's heart raced as she reached out to touch one of the dresses. As her fingers brushed against the delicate fabric, a vision washed over her, a scene from the past, a woman trying on the same dress, her face illuminated by the soft glow of vanity lights. The whispers grew more pronounced, guiding Emily's imagination. For nights on end, Emily delved deeper into the whispers, unraveling the hidden stories of the mannequins. She discovered that the mannequins were not mere fashion placeholders. They were witnesses to a bygone era. They whispered tales of love and heartbreak, of clandestine meetings in the store's hidden corners, and of secrets that had been buried in the depths of time. Emily's obsession with the mannequins began to consume her. She came to know each one intimately, giving them names and personalities based on the stories they whispered. She even started to believe that the mannequins moved when she wasn't looking, reenacting scenes from the past. One fateful night, Emily followed the whispers to a concealed room behind the store's grand display window. It was a room frozen in time, filled with dusty relics of a forgotten era, vintage clothing, antique furniture, and faded photographs that told the tales of those who had once frequented the store. As Emily gazed at the photographs, the whispers reached a fevered pitch, their words overlapping and intertwining. It was as if the spirits of the past were desperately trying to communicate with her. In the midst of the cacophony, a single name emerged: Evelyn. Emily knew she had to find out more about this mysterious figure from the past, the key to unlocking the department store's hidden secrets. Over weeks of tireless research, Emily pieced together the story of Evelyn, a young woman who had worked at the department store in the early 20th century. She had been a seamstress, crafting exquisite garments for the elite of the city. But Evelyn had also harbored a secret, a forbidden love affair that had ultimately led to her tragic end. Armed with this newfound knowledge, Emily returned to the mannequins, her determination unwavering. She whispered Evelyn's name, calling out to the spirit of the past. And then, something extraordinary happened. The mannequins stirred to life, their frozen expressions transforming into expressions of recognition and longing. Evelyn herself materialized before Emily, her translucent figure bathed in an ethereal light. With tears in her eyes, Emily whispered, "Evelyn, you're not alone anymore. I hear your whispers, and I've uncovered your story." Evelyn smiled, a bittersweet expression that seemed to convey both gratitude and release. The whispers ceased, replaced by a serene stillness. As dawn broke over the department store, Emily realized that she had bridged the gap between the past and the present, offering solace to a spirit trapped in the confines of time. The mannequins, once silent witnesses, now stood as a testament to the enduring power of stories, the echoes of which could be heard by those willing to listen. With newfound purpose, Emily continued her night shift patrols, knowing that the mannequins would forever hold the secrets of the past, and she would be their guardian, their interpreter, and their friend in the lonely hours of the night. Midnight checkout. Mark had always been a night owl. When most people were drifting into slumber, he was wide awake, ready to tackle the eerie stillness that pervaded the late hours. That's why he found himself working the graveyard shift at the 24-hour supermarket, a place where the mundane met the mysterious. The supermarket had a history, a whispered tale of odd occurrences that seemed to defy explanation. Mark had heard the stories from his coworkers, items moving on their own, eerie noises in the empty aisles, and a recurring customer who brought an air of unease with him. One fateful night, as Mark manned the checkout counter, he noticed a figure slowly making its way towards him. It was the strange customer, his eyes shadowed by the hood of his tattered coat. Mark couldn't shake the feeling that there was something off about the man, something that sent a chill down his spine. The man approached the counter, a cart filled with an assortment of peculiar items: candles, salt, a battered diary, and an old photograph. The eerie air seemed to grow thicker as Mark scanned the items. He couldn't help but ask, "What's all this for?" The customer's voice was a low, haunting whisper as he replied, "Protection, my friend. Protection from what lurks in the shadows." Mark raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite himself. Protection from what? The man leaned in closer, his voice barely audible. "From the spirits that haunt this place. This supermarket was built on unhallowed ground, and its past is tainted with darkness." Mark scoffed at the notion, but the man's eyes held a haunting intensity. Before he could respond, a jar of pickles on the nearby shelf suddenly toppled over, its contents spilling onto the floor. Startled, Mark glanced at the jar, then back at the man, who wore a knowing smile. "See, even now, they make their presence known." Mark's skepticism waned as he noticed the faint whispers that seemed to emanate from the aisles. The voices were soft and unintelligible, like distant echoes of long-forgotten conversations. "Who are they?" Mark asked, his curiosity overpowering his unease. The man hesitated, his eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and dread. "They are the lost souls of those who perished here, employees and customers alike, bound to this place by a tragic accident many years ago." Mark felt a shiver run down his spine. "Tell me more." The man's voice trembled as he recounted the chilling story. Decades ago, on a stormy night much like this one, a catastrophic accident had occurred at the supermarket. A gas leak had ignited a massive fire, trapping dozens of people inside. The rescue efforts had been too late for many, and their anguished spirits were said to have remained in the aisles, forever trapped in a twilight realm. As Mark listened, he couldn't help but notice the flickering of the overhead lights and the subtle movements of items on the shelves. It was as if the spirits were responding to the tale being told. The man's voice grew softer as he concluded, "I come here every night, offering my humble protection to the lost souls. They may be restless, but they mean no harm. In fact, they yearn for release." With a sense of impending doom, Mark asked, "How can they find peace?" The man handed him the battered diary and the old photograph. "You must help them uncover the truth. Only then can they be set free." Mark took the items, his fingers trembling. He had no idea how he could uncover a truth buried deep in the past, but he felt compelled to try. The whispers grew more urgent, as if urging him on. Over the following nights, Mark delved into the diary's pages. It was a haunting account of the accident, written by a survivor who had lost loved ones in the tragedy. The photograph depicted the supermarket in flames, a grim reminder of the horrors that had unfolded. As Mark read, he became increasingly convinced that the spirits were guiding him, revealing the hidden details of that dreadful night. He learned about the names and stories of the victims, their unfulfilled dreams, and their longing for closure. One by one, Mark documented their stories, honoring their memories and seeking justice for the past. He couldn't explain how he knew the details, but the whispers led him, providing insight into the lives of the lost souls. Finally, after weeks of relentless investigation, Mark gathered the stories into a document he titled The Supermarket Tragedy. He shared it with the world, bringing attention to the long-forgotten disaster and the lost souls who had remained trapped in the aisles. As the story spread, Mark felt a profound shift in the atmosphere of the supermarket. The whispers grew fainter, and the ghostly apparitions in the aisles began to dissipate. It was as if the spirits had finally found the peace they had longed for. One night, as Mark stood at the checkout counter, he felt a gentle breeze sweep through the store, a breeze that carried a sense of gratitude and release. The strange customer who had guided him on this eerie journey was nowhere to be seen. The supermarket, once shrouded in mystery and darkness, had found its peace as well. Mark continued his night shift duties, but the unsettling events and whispers had ceased. The lost souls had finally been set free, their stories told, and their presence in the aisles was no more. As Mark looked around the supermarket, he couldn't help but feel a sense of closure. The unknown had been laid to rest, and the past's grip on the present had been loosened. The supermarket was no longer haunted, it was a place of solace, where the lost souls could finally. Lost in the aisles, Sarah was a devoted bookworm, her love for literature rivaled only by her insatiable curiosity. One rainy afternoon, she stumbled upon a quaint old bookstore tucked away in a forgotten corner of the city. The sign above the entrance simply read, "Whitman's Books," and it beckoned to her like a siren's song. The moment Sarah stepped inside, she was transported to another world. The shop's interior was a labyrinth of towering bookshelves, each filled to the brim with volumes of every shape, size, and genre. The air was thick with the musty scent of well-worn pages, and the dim lighting cast eerie shadows that danced along the narrow aisles. The old shopkeeper, an enigmatic figure with a long beard and piercing eyes, watched Sarah's entrance with a knowing smile. As she ventured deeper into the bookstore, she couldn't help but notice the disorienting layout. It was as if the aisles shifted and rearranged themselves, leading her deeper into the literary maze. Hours passed, and Sarah found herself in an area of the store she didn't recognize. The bookshelves seemed to close in on her, making her feel claustrophobic and lost. Panic began to well up inside her as she realized that she couldn't find her way back to the entrance. Just as despair threatened to overtake her, Sarah noticed something peculiar. The books on the shelves seemed to flicker with life, their covers coming to life with illustrations that moved and danced. She reached out to touch one, and as her fingers brushed the pages, she was pulled into the illustration itself. Sarah found herself standing in a bustling Renaissance-era marketplace, surrounded by people in elaborate costumes and market stalls selling exotic wares. The world within the book was as vivid and real as her own. She marveled at the historical figures going about their business and the intricate details of the scene. "Are you lost, dear traveler?" a voice behind her inquired. Sarah turned to see a man dressed in period clothing, his face obscured by a mask. I suppose I am," she stammered. The masked man gestured to the bustling marketplace. "This is my world, the one I created within the pages of this book. But I am trapped here, unable to leave. You, however, can come and go as you please." Sarah's heart raced as she realized the significance of her situation. She was no longer just a reader, she was a part of the story itself. The masked man continued to speak, revealing his longing for freedom and his hope that Sarah could help him escape. As Sarah listened, she couldn't ignore the strange sense of duty that welled up within her. She agreed to help the masked man find a way out of his own creation. Together, they embarked on a journey through the bustling marketplace, searching for clues that could lead to their escape. Back in the real world, the old shopkeeper watched Sarah's interactions with the book with a knowing smile. He had seen this happen before. The books in Whitman's store were no ordinary books. They were gateways to other worlds, each with its own set of rules and challenges. As Sarah and her masked companion delved deeper into the story, they encountered obstacles and faced dangers. The line between fiction and reality blurred, and Sarah's understanding of the world was forever changed. The characters they met in the book, once confined to the pages, seemed to gain a life of their own. Days turned into weeks as Sarah and the masked man navigated the intricate plot of the story. They discovered hidden rooms, deciphered cryptic messages, and forged alliances with other characters from the book. The more they learned, the more the boundaries of fiction and reality seemed to blur. In the end, after a series of trials and tribulations, Sarah and the masked man found the key to his escape, a mysterious portal that would allow him to step out of the book and into the real world. With a heavy heart, Sarah said her goodbyes to the characters she had grown to love, and together with the masked man, she crossed the threshold of the portal. As they emerged back into the old bookstore, the enigmatic shopkeeper greeted them with a nod of approval. Sarah's adventure had come to an end, but the memories and lessons she had gained from her time within the pages of that book would stay with her forever. She had discovered the incredible power of imagination, the thin veil that separated fiction from reality, and the magic that lay hidden within the pages of a good book. As Sarah left Whitman's books that rainy afternoon, she couldn't help but glance back at the bookstore, wondering what other worlds and adventures lay hidden within its labyrinthine aisles. The old shopkeeper simply smiled, knowing that the allure of the written word would continue to draw curious souls like Sarah into its mysterious embrace, ready to get lost in the aisles once more. The dressing room. Laura was known among her friends as a fashion enthusiast. She had an uncanny ability to spot the trendiest outfits and had a closet bursting with the latest styles. So when she heard about the new boutique clothing store that had just opened in town, she couldn't resist the urge to pay it a visit. The store, named Elegance and Enigma, had an air of sophistication that drew Laura in the moment she stepped through the door. The sleek, minimalist interior was adorned with racks of clothing, each piece more exquisite than the last. As she browsed the racks, she couldn't help but overhear the whispers among the other customers about the dressing room at the back, a dressing room with an unsettling reputation. Curiosity got the better of Laura, and she decided to try on a dress in that very room. She grabbed a beautiful crimson gown and made her way to the ominous dressing room at the rear of the store. Inside, the dressing room was dimly lit, casting eerie shadows on the ornate, full-length mirrors that lined the walls. Laura hesitated for a moment, feeling a shiver run down her spine. She pushed aside her unease and slipped into the crimson gown. As she looked at herself in the mirror, she was struck by how the dress seemed to accentuate her features perfectly. Her reflection was undeniably stunning, but something was off. Laura blinked, and in that instant, she noticed that her reflection blinked too. She parted her lips, and her reflection mirrored her actions independently. A chill crept down Laura's spine as she realized that her reflection was moving on its own. Panic surged through her as the reflection in the mirror seemed to take on a life of its own, grinning menacingly. "No, this can't be real," Laura muttered, her voice trembling. "You've put on the dress," a voice whispered from the shadows of the dressing room. Laura turned to see an old, cryptic tailor standing there, his eyes gleaming with a knowing glint. "Who are you?" she stammered. "I'm the one who made that dress," he replied with a mysterious smile. "It's a special creation, you see. It has the power to show you more than just your reflection." Laura was trapped. She couldn't move or scream as her reflection continued to act independently, taunting her with cruel gestures. It was as if the dress had a hold on her, pulling her into a twisted reality. Suddenly, the mirror showed Laura scenes from other customers' lives, each one more tragic than the last. She watched in horror as people sobbed, confronted their deepest fears, and relived their most painful memories, all through their reflections in the cursed mirror. Laura pleaded with the tailor to release her from the dress's grip, but he simply shook his head. "The price of vanity is steep," he muttered. "You wanted to be beautiful, didn't you?" Desperation overcame Laura as she realized that the only way to break free from the dress's curse was to find its dark history and confront the consequences of its creation. The mirror continued to show her haunting images of other customers, their tormented reflections echoing their anguish. With newfound determination, Laura pleaded with the mirror to show her the truth about the dress. The reflection finally relented, revealing a twisted tale of greed and tragedy. The tailor had crafted the dress from the souls of those who had succumbed to their vanity, and it was cursed to trap anyone who dared to wear it. As the mirror revealed the dress's dark history, Laura felt a surge of power coursing through her. She knew what she had to do. With every ounce of strength she could muster, she tore the cursed dress from her body and flung it into the mirror. There was a blinding flash of light, and the mirror shattered into 1,000 pieces. The cursed dress was gone, and with it, the haunting reflections of the other customers. Breathing heavily, Laura turned to the old tailor, who had vanished into thin air. She was free, but the dressing room was no longer the eerie, cursed place it had once been. The ominous atmosphere had lifted, and Laura was able to leave the room, shaken but alive. As she stepped back into the boutique clothing store, she couldn't help but notice the curious glances of the other customers. They had no idea of the horrors that had unfolded in the dressing room. Laura quietly made her way to the exit, vowing never to let vanity lead her down such a treacherous path again. As she stepped out into the daylight, the memory of the cursed dress and the cryptic tailor haunted her. She had learned the high price of vanity, and the true horror that could lurk behind a beautiful facade. From that day forward, Laura vowed to cherish her own reflection and the reality it represented, grateful for the escape from the dreadful grasp of the dressing room's curse. The Toy Soldier's Secret. In the heart of the town, nestled between bustling stores and lively streets, stood a quaint toy shop known far and wide for its unique collection of antique toys. The shop's time-worn sign read Mr. McAllister's Toy Emporium, and its charming exterior drew the curious and the nostalgic alike. One sunny afternoon, young Jack ventured into Mr. McAllister's shop. His eyes widened as they landed on shelves upon shelves of toys from a bygone era. Vintage dolls with delicate porcelain faces, clockwork cars, and wooden trains all held a special allure for the boy with an insatiable curiosity. Amidst the treasures of the toy shop, one particular item caught Jack's attention: a solitary toy soldier standing tall and proud in his red uniform. Unlike the other toys, this soldier was not made of plastic or wood. He appeared to be cast in metal, and his bright blue eyes seemed to sparkle with life. Jack reached out and picked up the toy soldier, marveling at its craftsmanship. He examined every inch of the small figure and noted the intricate details of its uniform, from the brass buttons to the tiny musket held firmly in its hand. It was a toy that seemed to belong to a different time, a relic of a forgotten age. As Jack held the toy soldier in his palm, he was startled when he heard a faint voice coming from the toy. "Hello there, young lad." Jack blinked in surprise, thinking his imagination was playing tricks on him. But then, to his astonishment, the toy soldier repeated, "Hello there, young lad." Jack's heart raced as he realized that the toy soldier was indeed speaking to him. "Who are you?" he stammered. "I am Frederick," the toy soldier replied. "I've been waiting for someone like you, someone with an open heart and a curious spirit." Jack was captivated by this magical encounter. "How can you talk?" he asked, his voice filled with wonder. Frederick's eyes twinkled as he explained, "I am no ordinary toy soldier, my boy. I once belonged to a great toy maker, Mr. McAllister's grandfather. He infused me with a piece of his own spirit, and I have been here ever since, waiting for someone to discover the secrets of this shop." With newfound excitement, Jack listened intently as Frederick revealed the hidden magic of Mr. McAllister's Toy Emporium. The toys in the shop were not ordinary. They possessed a life of their own. When the shop was empty, They would come to life, moving about and sharing stories of their past adventures. Jack was eager to learn more, and Frederick guided him through the shop, introducing him to the other enchanted toys. A wind-up clown that could juggle, a porcelain doll that could sing, and a fleet of toy cars that raced around the store. Each one had its own unique ability. But as Jack explored the toy shop's magical world, he couldn't help but sense an undercurrent of sadness. Frederick confided in him about Mr. McAllister's grandfather, the brilliant toymaker who had brought the toys to life. He had disappeared under mysterious circumstances, leaving the toys trapped in their secret world. With Frederick's guidance, Jack embarked on a quest to unlock the mysteries of Mr. McAllister's toy emporium and free the toys from their enchantment. Together, they discovered a hidden basement beneath the shop, filled with forgotten toys longing to be reunited with the world above. In the basement, they found an old journal written by Mr. McAllister's grandfather. It contained the secrets of the toys' enchantment and a heartfelt plea to his family to bring him back from the realm of enchantment. Jack realized that the fate of the toymaker and the toys was intertwined. With Frederick's help, he devised a plan to break the enchantment and release the spirits trapped within the toys. It would require great sacrifice, but Jack was willing to do whatever it took to set things right. As the final moment approached, Jack held the old toy soldier in his hand, and Frederick whispered words of encouragement. With a deep breath, Jack performed the incantation from the toymaker's journal. The shop began to glow with a soft, otherworldly light as the enchantment was broken. One by one, the toys returned to their inanimate forms, but their spirits were set free. And at the center of it all, Frederick, the toy soldier, slowly transformed into a shining, ethereal figure. With a grateful smile, he nodded to Jack and vanished into the light. The toy shop returned to its quiet, antique charm, but the toys had been freed from their enchanted existence. Jack knew that he had played a part in a wondrous, magical tale that would be cherished for generations to come. As he left Mr. McAllister's toy emporium that day, Jack couldn't help but feel that he had experienced something truly extraordinary. He had learned that magic could exist in the most unexpected places and that a heart filled with curiosity and kindness could unlock the secrets of even the most enigmatic worlds. Silent shelves. Helen had always been an inquisitive person. Working at the local electronics store was her dream job, surrounded by the latest gadgets and gizmos. But there was one place in the store she was told to never venture into: the forbidden backroom. The backroom had always been a mystery. It was locked behind a heavy steel door, and only the manager had the key. Employees were strictly forbidden from entering, and there were rumors of strange occurrences within its walls. As Helen unpacked the latest shipment of smartphones one afternoon, her curiosity got the best of her. The forbidden backroom beckoned to her like an unsolved puzzle. What could be so secret and sinister hidden away in a small electronics store? She had to find out. With trembling hands, she decided to take the risk. When the manager was busy helping a customer, she slipped the key from his desk and ventured toward the steel door. The key slid into the lock with a soft click, and Helen pushed the door open just a crack. She slipped inside, heart pounding. The back room was dimly lit, filled with old electronic devices and obsolete gadgets that had long been forgotten. Dusty shelves held VHS players, ancient gaming consoles, and rows of dusty televisions. It was a graveyard of outdated technology. As Helen wandered deeper into the room, she noticed something odd. Some of the devices were glowing faintly, as if they were still operational. She picked up an old, dusty VR headset and put it on, wondering what it would show. Suddenly, she was plunged into a virtual world, surrounded by a surreal landscape. Trees with glowing leaves swayed in an otherworldly breeze, and the sky pulsed with colors she had never seen before. Helen couldn't help but marvel at the immersive experience. But as she explored further, the virtual world took a dark turn. The once beautiful landscape transformed into a nightmarish hellscape. Twisted, grotesque creatures lurked in the shadows, their eyes glowing with malevolence. Helen tried to remove the VR headset, but it wouldn't budge. She was trapped. The headset seemed to whisper to her, filling her mind with cryptic messages and eerie voices. "You shouldn't have come here," it hissed. "Now you're part of our world." Helen screamed as the virtual world closed in around her, the creatures drawing closer. Just as she thought all hope was lost, the headset was torn from her head, and she found herself back in the dimly lit back room, gasping for breath. Shaken but determined, Helen decided to explore further. As she touched the dusty screens of the ancient televisions, they flickered to life, displaying distorted images of shadowy figures and cryptic symbols. She couldn't tear her eyes away, and the screens seemed to pulse with a life of their own. The whispers grew louder, and Helen realized they were coming from the screens. "Join us," they urged. "Become one with the technology." Desperate to escape the eerie backroom, Helen ran toward the steel door, but it slammed shut before she could reach it. She was trapped, surrounded by the relentless whispers and eerie images. Suddenly, her smartphone, which she had left on a nearby shelf, flew into the air and hovered before her. Its screen displayed a message in an otherworldly language that Helen couldn't understand. It seemed to be communicating with the other devices in the room, and they responded with an eerie, synchronized hum. The room started to change. The shelves rearranged themselves, forming a labyrinth of wires and screens. Helen felt as if she were inside a malevolent computer, with the technology itself closing in on her. In a final desperate act, she grabbed an old, dusty keyboard from one of the shelves and smashed it against the smartphone. Sparks flew, and a surge of energy surged through the room. The screens flickered and sputtered, the whispers faded, and the devices went dark. The steel door swung open, and Helen stumbled out of the back room, gasping for air. She had survived the sinister encounter with the haunted electronics, but she knew that she had narrowly escaped a fate worse than death. She left the forbidden back room behind, locking the door once more. The manager never suspected that she had ventured inside, and Helen was content to keep the terrifying secret to herself. As she returned to her duties in the store, she couldn't help but glance at the rows of electronic devices, wondering what other horrors might be lurking within the silent shelves. The last customer. Alex had seen his fair share of odd customers during his years as the night clerk at the rundown convenience store on the edge of town, but none of them were as strange or as persistent as the last customer. The convenience store was a dimly lit, desolate place. The faded fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting an eerie glow on the aging linoleum floors. Shelves lined with dusty, long-forgotten goods loomed in the corners, and the air was heavy with the scent of stale cigarettes and dampness. Alex, a jaded and weary store clerk, had grown used to the monotony of his job. Night after night, he manned the cash register, serving a handful of late-night stragglers who wandered in for snacks or cigarettes. But there was one customer who stood out from the rest, the last customer. The last customer appeared at the store one fateful night, as the clock neared closing time. He was a tall figure, obscured by a long, tattered coat and a wide-brimmed hat that shadowed his face. Something about him was immediately unsettling, but Alex couldn't put his finger on it. "Can I help you with anything?" Alex asked, his voice tinged with the weariness that came from years of dealing with late-night wanderers. The last customer didn't respond. He simply stood there, staring at the shelves of expired canned goods and faded cereal boxes. His presence seemed to cast a strange chill over the store. Closing time came and went, but the last customer showed no signs of leaving. Alex reluctantly decided to let him stay a bit longer, hoping he would eventually make a purchase and be on his way. As the minutes turned into hours, Alex's patience wore thin. "I'm sorry, but I really need to close up now," Alex said, his voice tinged with annoyance. Still, the last customer said nothing and made no move to leave. He continued to wander the aisles, his footsteps echoing in the empty store. Alex's unease grew as he realized that the last customer seemed to know things he shouldn't. He mentioned details about Alex's life, his childhood, his failed relationships, even his deepest fears, that he had never shared with anyone. It was as if the stranger had access to his most private thoughts. "What do you want from me?" Alex demanded, his frustration and fear mounting. The last customer finally turned to face him, but his features remained obscured in the shadows. He spoke in a low, raspy voice that sent shivers down Alex's spine. "I'm here for something you can't yet understand, something that's been long overdue." With those cryptic words, the store seemed to shift and warp around them. The shelves rearranged themselves, the dim lights flickered and dimmed further, and the walls seemed to close in. Alex felt as if he were trapped in a nightmarish labyrinth. Desperate to escape, Alex made a dash for the exit, but the door refused to budge. Panic welled up inside him as he realized that he was trapped in the store with the enigmatic last customer. Hours turned into days, and Alex's mind unraveled as he and the last customer existed in a strange limbo. Time seemed to have no meaning in the claustrophobic confines of the store. As Alex's sanity teetered on the brink, the last customer continued to taunt him with cryptic hints about his own past and future. He spoke of prophecies and impending doom, all while refusing to reveal his own identity or purpose. The store itself became a nightmarish maze, with aisles that seemed to stretch into infinity. Alex wandered in a daze, unable to distinguish between reality and delusion. He began to question his own existence, wondering if he had ever truly existed outside of the convenience store. Then, one day, the last customer approached him with a chilling smile. "It's time," he whispered. Suddenly, the store seemed to collapse in on itself, folding into a singularity of darkness. Alex felt himself being pulled into an abyss, his consciousness fading as the boundaries of reality dissolved. When he awoke, he found himself back at the convenience store, behind the counter. The shelves were once again stocked with familiar goods, and the dim lights buzzed overhead. It was as if nothing had ever happened. But as he glanced at the clock, Alex realized that only minutes had passed since the last customer had first entered the store. It was as if the entire ordeal had been a nightmarish dream. As he stared out the store window into the darkness of the night, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that the last customer's presence still lingered just beyond the edge of his perception. He knew that the encounter had left an indelible mark on his soul, one that he would carry with him for the rest of his days. And he knew, deep down, that the last customer was not truly gone, but merely biding his time, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to cross his path. Echoes in the mall. The abandoned shopping mall stood as a decaying relic of consumerism, its once vibrant halls now silent, save for the echoes of the past. A group of adventurous teenagers had decided to spend their Friday night exploring its desolate corridors, unaware of the eerie encounter that awaited them. As they ventured deeper into the mall, the teenagers couldn't shake the unsettling feeling of being watched. The flickering overhead lights cast long shadows that seemed to dance with a sinister rhythm. Each step they took echoed strangely, as if the mall were still alive with the bustling crowds of shoppers. "Isn't it crazy that this place used to be bustling with people?" Sarah mused, her voice trembling slightly. "Yeah," Jake replied, his flashlight scanning the remnants of a once thriving department store. "Now it's just a ghost town." As they continued their exploration, they stumbled upon stores that appeared to be operational from a distance. The dimly lit windows showcased mannequins frozen in time, dressed in outdated fashions. But upon closer inspection, the stores were empty, devoid of merchandise or signs of life. "This is seriously giving me the creeps," whispered Mia, clutching onto her friend's arm. Their journey took them deeper into the heart of the mall, where the echoes of long-forgotten conversations and laughter seemed to grow louder. The teenagers could almost imagine the bustling shoppers, the children tugging at their parents' sleeves, and the scent of freshly baked pretzels wafting through the air. As they rounded a corner, they heard the distant murmur of a crowd, and their flashlights revealed a large, open area that had once been a food court. The spectral remnants of shoppers sat at tables, their transparent forms enjoying imaginary meals. It was as if time itself had become trapped within these walls. "This is getting way too weird," Mark muttered, his eyes darting around nervously. The teenagers were about to turn and leave when they heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoing through the corridor behind them. Panic set in as they realized they were alone in the mall, or so they had thought. "Who's there?" shouted Mia, her voice quivering. The footsteps grew louder and closer, yet the source remained invisible. Suddenly, a chilling gust of wind swept through the food court, extinguishing their flashlights and plunging them into darkness. Panic turned to terror as the unseen entity drew near. They could feel its presence, an oppressive force that seemed to envelop them. The sound of whispered voices filled the air, indistinct but unmistakably human. In the pitch-black darkness, they stumbled and fumbled to escape, but the mall seemed to shift, rearranging its layout like a labyrinth designed to confound. The spectral entity was relentless, always a few steps behind them, its whispers growing more coherent. "I used to shop here with my daughter. Why did you leave me behind? Why did you forget me?" The words echoed through their minds, driving fear deep into their hearts. They were trapped, lost in a place where the echoes of the past merged with the living, and reality and the supernatural intertwine. As they reached the brink of despair, Sarah's flashlight flickered back to life, illuminating their path to the exit. With newfound determination, they raced toward the mall's entrance, their footsteps echoing through the empty halls. Finally, they burst out into the cool night air, gasping for breath. They looked back at the mall, now a dark, looming silhouette against the night sky. The echoes of the past still lingered, but they were free from the clutches of the spectral entity. As they caught their breath, the teenagers exchanged knowing glances. They had ventured where few dared to go, and they had returned with a story that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The abandoned mall would continue to stand as a silent testament to the echoes of the past, a place where the boundaries between life and death blurred, and where the spirits of forgotten shoppers still roamed the corridors, whispering their haunting tales to anyone brave enough to listen. The price of desire. Diane had always been captivated by the allure of luxury jewelry. The way diamonds sparkled in the light and the way pearls seemed to glimmer with their own inner glow. But her fascination had recently grown into an obsession, an unshakable desire for one particular necklace, an exquisite masterpiece that rested behind the glass counter of a small, elegant boutique in the heart of the city. Every day, Diane would pass by the store on her way to work, her eyes inevitably drawn to that necklace. Its sapphire pendant was a deep, enchanting blue, and the delicate chain seemed to whisper promises of beauty and desire. Each time she walked by, it was as if the necklace called out to her, beckoning her to enter the store and make it her own. One sunny afternoon, unable to resist any longer, Diane finally stepped into the store. The owner, an elderly man with a calculating smile, greeted her warmly. "Welcome, my dear. How can I assist you today?" Diane pointed to the necklace behind the glass. "I'd like to see that one, please." The owner's eyes twinkled as he retrieved the necklace, placing it gently on a velvet-lined tray. Diane marveled at its beauty, her fingers itching to touch it. She couldn't help but feel a strange connection to the necklace, as if it were meant for her and her alone. "It's breathtaking, isn't it?" the owner said, his voice smooth as silk. Diane nodded, her heart racing with anticipation. "I must have it." The owner smiled and nodded. "Of course, my dear. But I must warn you, this necklace comes at a price. Diane's desire overpowered any sense of caution. I'll pay whatever it takes. The transaction was swift, and Diane left the store with the necklace safely nestled in a velvet box. As she walked down the bustling streets, she couldn't help but feel a sense of empowerment, as if the necklace had granted her newfound beauty and charm. Passers-by turned their heads to look at her, and even strangers offered her compliments. But as days turned into weeks, Diane began to notice something unsettling. Those around her seemed to change, their attitudes shifting from friendly to obsessive. Friends and acquaintances who once admired her had become strangely possessive and envious. It was as if the necklace held a power that could not be denied. One evening, as Diane stood before her bathroom mirror, she caught a glimpse of herself wearing the necklace. She stared in horror as her reflection contorted into a grotesque, nightmarish visage, her eyes hollow and her smile twisted into a malevolent grin. The image vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving Diane shaken to her core. Terrified and desperate for answers, Diane returned to the jewelry store, her heart pounding with fear. The owner, as always, greeted her warmly. "Ah, my dear, I see you've been enjoying the necklace." Diane's voice quivered as she asked, "What have I done? What is this necklace?" The owner's smile widened, revealing sharp, gleaming teeth. "The price of desire, my dear. It grants beauty and charm, but it demands a toll in return." Diane felt a chill run down her spine. "What toll? What have I paid?" The owner leaned in close, his voice a sinister whisper. "Misfortune follows those who possess the necklace. It feeds on the envy and greed of those around you. It thrives on the darkness in their hearts." Diane's mind raced as she realized the true nature of her obsession. The necklace was a curse, a malevolent force that had tainted her life and the lives of those she cared about. She had paid a terrible price for her desire, and now she had to find a way to break free from its grip. Desperation led Diane to search for answers. She combed through ancient texts and consulted with experts in the occult, determined to discover a way to rid herself of the necklace's curse. But the necklace's power seemed insurmountable, its hold over her growing stronger with each passing day. One fateful night, as Diane lay sleepless in her bed, she heard a soft, haunting melody. It was the necklace, whispering to her, calling her to the store. Unable to resist its siren song, she found herself standing before the boutique once more. The owner awaited her, his smile predatory. "I see you've come back, my dear. The necklace has claimed you." Diane's voice trembled as she spoke. "I want to break free from its curse. I'll do anything." The owner's eyes gleamed with a sinister light. "There is only one way to free yourself. You must pass the curse on to another, just as it was passed to you." Diane's heart sank at the thought of condemning another to the necklace's malevolence. But the curse had become unbearable, and she knew she had no other choice. In the end, Diane chose to pass the necklace on to the owner himself, sealing his fate and freeing herself from its curse. As she left the store for the final time, she couldn't help but feel a sense of relief, knowing that the price of desire. Frozen in time. Arthur had always been captivated by the intricate craftsmanship of antique clocks. Their intricate gears and delicate movements held a fascination for him that bordered on obsession. He spent his days meticulously repairing these timepieces in his small clock shop, nestled in the heart of an old, quiet town. One autumn day, a peculiar clock arrived at Arthur's shop. It was unlike any he had ever seen before. The clock's polished mahogany case was adorned with intricate carvings, and its face displayed an array of ornate hands, each pointing to a different hour. As he carefully examined it, Arthur couldn't help but feel an otherworldly aura emanating from the timepiece. As he set to work on the mysterious clock, Arthur couldn't help but notice that time itself seemed to behave strangely in its presence. Minutes stretched into hours, and hours compressed into mere seconds as he worked. The clock's chimes took on an eerie, melodious quality, echoing through the shop like the whispers of ghosts. Days turned into weeks as Arthur worked tirelessly on the clock, each tick and tock resonating with a sense of foreboding. He couldn't deny that the clock held a unique power, a power to manipulate time itself. But with this newfound ability came a price that he was yet to discover. One evening, as Arthur toiled away, he accidentally knocked the clock from its pedestal. It tumbled to the floor with a deafening crash, its delicate hands shattering upon impact. For a moment, the world around him seemed to freeze, as if time itself had come to a standstill. With trembling hands, Arthur carefully examined the shattered clock. As he gazed at the pieces, he realized that he held in his hands the means to manipulate time, to change the course of his own life. The allure of the clock's power was irresistible, and he couldn't resist the temptation to make use of it. With great care, Arthur began to repair the clock, slowly reassembling its intricate components. As he worked, he couldn't help but wonder what he could change, what moments from his past he could revisit and alter. As the clock neared completion, Arthur decided to test its power. He carefully turned the hands back to a pivotal moment in his life, a moment he had always regretted. Suddenly, he found himself transported back in time, reliving that very moment. At first, it was exhilarating. He corrected his past mistakes, said the words he had always wished he had said, and changed the course of his life in ways he had only dreamed of. But as he continued to manipulate time, he began to realize the true cost of the clock's power. Time loops and paradoxes plagued him, trapping him in an endless cycle of past mistakes and regrets. He couldn't escape the relentless march of time, no matter how hard he tried to manipulate it. Each alteration of the past only led to more suffering and heartache. Desperate and trapped in the ever-shifting sands of time, Arthur turned his attention back to the shattered clock. With trembling hands, he attempted to reverse the changes he had made, to set things right once more. But the clock's power had a malevolent will of its own. As he struggled to repair the clock, Arthur was confronted by a mysterious figure that appeared in the shop's mirrors. Its reflection moved independently of him, its eyes filled with an unsettling knowledge of the clock's true nature. "You cannot escape the consequences of your actions," the figure whispered, its voice echoing through the mirrors. With a final, desperate effort, Arthur managed to reassemble the clock. But as he turned its hands back to the present, he realized that he had paid the ultimate price for his desire to manipulate time. The clock's power had trapped him in an unending cycle of suffering and regret, frozen in a moment of his own making. As he stood before the repaired clock, Arthur couldn't help but wonder if it had been a curse all along, a curse that had lured him in with promises of changing the past. Now he was frozen in time, forever haunted by the consequences of his actions, forever trapped in a moment of his own making.